hey.
Well, you staring at me like all creepy, like over that mic there.
Well, maybe that works because...
I mean, you're like this. It's like all I see is your eyes and your eyebrows and your head's like down.
Do you believe in ghosts?
Yes.
Oh, you do?
Yes. We've had this discussion.
I
I believe in
air?
the paranormal. I don't remember.
I mean, we've talked about aliens on the show, but have we ever talked about ghosts?
I don't know. I don't recall.
You ever heard of a cyber ghost?
I think so, yeah. Like one that lives in a computer?
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard of it.
See, I'm convinced.
I'm
Convinced, and I'm not even convinced. I know they exist. Because I did something a long time ago online that has continued to haunt me to this day.
It's called a virus, my friend.
No, it's not a virus.
Okay.
I did a build thread, if you remember those on forums.
Oh yeah. I've contributed to a few.
Okay, I did a build thread on actually like 4 forums at the same time, and it was literally a copy and paste thing. Different comments in between them, but it was different forums I was on, copy and paste. To this day, I still get calls, people asking tech questions, because in that, at the time, I owned a business, and my business advertisement banner was on the bottom, and apparently is still on some of them.
Nice.
So, it's a ghost.
Nice.
I still have the same phone number. That business is shut down.
Nice.
In fact, you remember Route 55 Transport.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe back in those days.
Yep.
Is gone. But the ghost of Route 55 Transport was my Cummins 12 valve to G56 Six Speed swap.
Nice.
You want to talk a little bit about that today for episode 56?
I do, because I have questions, too, for you on that.
Do you?
I remember when you did
Everyone has questions.
And we've talked about it before. That's the best part. I'm still wondering.
All right. Let's talk. Let maybe some people that... Maybe this will be a ghost of an episode. Maybe people will listen to it 8 years from now and actually get the tech information, so I don't need to get a phone call every 2
No, they're still going to call you.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, we'll just put a different phone number. We'll put down Andrew, the producer's phone number.
Oh,
problem
perfect.
solved.
Let's do it.
It's time to hit the trail, lock in those hubs, and throw it into low range. Because you are listening to Wheelin' with Keith and Johnny Orange, broadcasting from the Thin Line Off-Road Studio. They're here to talk about 4x4s, trucks, and everything to do with enjoying the great outdoors. Buckle up. Here's your hosts, Keith and Johnny Orange.
Oh, he did not like that. True. That just means he's going to have to voice over your phone number in there, so we'll get to hear him talk.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, I can see that. So, how you doing right now? Good?
I'm all right. I'm all right. It was an interesting night.
Yeah?
That's about it.
Interesting night.
I kind of had a lot.
Oh, previous night. Yes.
Yes. Yeah, I'm not doing that for a while, probably.
Yeah. Well, yeah, like our last episode when we had a little...
No, I won't say never.
Oh.
I always learn you never say never.
Where we had a little bit too much apple juice. And
it was rum. Who we kidding?
Okay, all right. We had a little bit too much rum on the last episode. We had a good time. Good episode.
Oh, yeah.
Audio quality was great. We were just talking about that.
Take your word for it.
All right. Well, I always listen, like I've said before, every episode once. Just once. Yeah. I rarely go back and listen to them again, but I usually for quality listen. I mean, not that I trust Andrew greatly, but you never know. I might catch something where there's a jump or a skip or something. I have yet to do that. I think in 56 episodes, there's been maybe 4 times where I've said, "Hey, we got a weird volume thing going on right now," or something, and that's been about it. So his producing capabilities have been far above anything I could ever do.
Yes. Your computer's haunted, so
there you go. So my haunted computer. Speaking of that, like I said, this is episode 56, and on the last episode we talked about what could we do for 56, and then you said maybe the 56 Napco again, and maybe we'll do a rehash of that eventually.
To be honest, I completely forgot I suggested that even.
Yeah, and then I started to mention the T56, which is a car like Corvette transmission, and I was like, oh, that's not something. Well, then I forgot about the G56.
Yeah,
which bad on me because I am one of the fathers of that transmission.
I don't want to know the mechanics of that. I don't want to know. I'm out. I quit. I'm done.
Okay, a little backstory.
We'll go into that after the after show.
Yeah. Our little backstory. We tell stories on this show all the time, and this even predates Andrew, the producer. Mm-hmm. But it does not predate you and I knowing each other.
It doesn't predate him. He was around.
Well, he was around. I just didn't know him. I had never met him yet. Yeah. So
you weren't doing that when you were like 6, dude.
No.
That transmission wasn't even around yet.
My businesses, I've had a number of businesses over the years, and in reality, the same business has morphed into other businesses over the years.
Yeah.
Legally, I've had 3 different businesses.
Mm-hmm. We know the Gigolo service was one.
Yeah, that was one. Yep.
That one failed miserably. Nobody would pay him.
Yeah, I know. I still have people out in collections.
I mean,
on
they
that
did
one.
pay him, and they paid him to leave, keep his clothes on.
No, I started out as a young man, really in the first days of people selling things over the internet with what I called Keith's Hot Rod Shop.
I remember the name.
I sold antique car parts, antique cars all over the world. We've told stories before about how I sold a car to Saddam Hussein. I mean, it's all sorts of weird things.
We've never talked about that one on the air, though.
Haven't we? I thought we did.
I don't know if I remember that one.
Pretty sure we did.
You and I have a long time ago.
I've sold cars all over the place.
Nice.
And so I was operating under a DBA. It was a legal
doing business as. For those of you who don't
legal
know.
DBA. And when it started to build up to a certain level of success, my accountant said, "Hey, you really need to go and get an LLC." Okay. Went to go get an LLC. There was already a Keith's Hot Rod Shop, like down in Tennessee or something like that actually built cars. So he said, "Well, you need to do something different."
Yeah.
And at the time, I was getting into 4x4s and stuff a lot. So I played around with a bunch of different names, and we ended up coming up with Route 55. It was like the original name, which got changed very quickly, so that's why I don't even quite remember it. It was something like Route 55 4x4 Supply or something like that. Okay. And at that point, my business had morphed into the point where it was about 90% 4x4 parts.
Nice.
I was doing very little antique car stuff, a little bit, but not much. And so it became Route 55. And there maybe the question, maybe you're going to ask, where did Route 55 come from? No, yes, you don't care?
Yeah, not really.
I'll just keep going with it.
But yeah, I mean, they might want to know.
Oh, they might want to know. Okay. Well,
when you pique my curiosity, you can't leave me hanging now.
55 at the time, I'm not necessarily somebody that believes in like lucky numbers, but I had in the same year, the number 55 seemed to be popping up like every couple weeks for something.
I got a few numbers like that for me.
And it was always there on the forefront. And I was like, okay. And I was thinking like the old Route 66. I was like, oh, it's kind of a play on Route 66. Now, there is a real Route 55. It's on the East Coast, and historically, it was going to be the East Coast version of Route 66.
Okay.
And it never fully materialized. There's like maybe a couple hundred miles of it left. It was an old project, but so we weren't on Route 55. It was kind of a name. It was a fake name. We had this cool shield emblem that a friend of mine made up.
Nice. I've seen that.
Yeah. So it was a parts supply business. We bought a building. We were selling a lot of, at the time, axles and engines.
Yeah.
All 4x4 axles and diesel engines and things like that. We were selling them all over the country. Having a really, really hard time getting reliable freight shipping options, which today is still a little bit of a problem. As we talked before the show, I still was having an issue with that.
Yeah.
But I was having trouble with these reliable freight shipping options. And I started having customers, and like anything, it starts out small.
Yeah.
I'd have somebody call me up and be like, oh, I'm in Cleveland's a 5-hour drive from us.
They're about
4 or 5 hour drive, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm in Cleveland. The local freight place is saying that it's going to be $600 to get it to me, the engine or whatever. And I'll bring it to you for $400.
Nice.
Okay, fine. So I started doing that. I started doing all these short hauls in between with the business. Well, somehow that developed a, people started to hear about it, and, they were like, hey, let's, they'd call me and they say, hey, I heard you're going to, so-and-so in Cleveland, and you're coming back to the greater Detroit area. I bought a vintage Suburban or whatever. How much to bring it back from Cleveland? Okay. Nice. It was a business I went into completely by accident, completely by mistake. But by the end of 2009, I was full on into the transport business.
I recall that. That was, shortly after I knew you or met you.
Yeah. Drove all over the country.
Yeah.
Up to Alaska, out to California, all over the place. Well, I bought.
You ever drive out to Hawaii?
No, I've been to Hawaii, but I never drove. I'd like to, but.
That would be an interesting feat. I would love to see that.
Well, you could do it in an amphicar or a duck or something, right?
I don't know. I don't know how those would handle the waves. I don't know. How far off of the coast of California is Hawaii?
It's in the middle of the Pacific Ocean.
Well, how many miles?
I don't know. Maybe 3,000 miles?
All right, that's a lot further than I thought.
Yeah, it's a far away.
Yeah. Oh, he's going to look.
He's going to look it up.
I really want to know now because I'm...
2,467.
I was pretty close.
2467 miles.
2467.
Wow.
That'd be a long way. So anyway,
you're not going to have the fuel range in that. Sorry.
Speaking of fuel range, I was delivering originally with kind of my family beater. My original delivery truck was a 454 Chevy gasoline truck that got about 5 miles a gallon.
Nice.
Didn't work out real well. Wasn't real profitable.
Yeah.
Doing more of this, I said, okay. I went and bought an old Dodge Cummins diesel extended cab, 1997, two-wheel drive. I know, heaven forbid.
I know the guy you got it from.
Yeah, 12 valve. No, that was the first one I got. This is the white one. No, the gray one I got from your buddy.
Yeah.
The white one was my actual delivery truck.
Oh, yeah. Because that other engine was destined for the other truck.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
So I bought the this used 97 Dodge truck with an MV4500 5-speed transmission.
Yeah.
Great little transmission. On the weekend behind a Cummins. And started running that all over the country and ran that for about, 2 years, something like that. And on my way back from a haul in Florida, fifth gear blew up.
Nice.
Lost it. It's an external mounted fifth gear that's in the NV4500. And so it was like an old 4-speed at that point, but being with a diesel, I was now limited at like 60 miles an hour tops. 55, 60.
Yeah.
No overdrive.
So you listen to that song, I Can't Drive 55 a lot.
Yeah.
Nice.
So I determined that I was going to swap in a more durable transmission. Did a ton of research, and I looked into MV5600, which was the 6-speed that replaced the NV4500, but it was behind the 24 valves. And they had a lot of durability problems, pretty much the same durability problems, if not worse than the MV4500 had.
Yeah, that's a bummer.
It really is.
You'd think they'd fix that when they go a step up.
Exactly. And I looked at like the Eaton Fuller 6-speeds. I looked at even crazy idea of putting like a Road Ranger 10-speed out behind it. All different things.
That sounds awesome.
It would have been.
That sounds expensive.
But this was what I eventually settled on. I said, well, the new Cummins trucks, now they don't, as of this recording, we talked about this in a previous episode, but the new Cummins trucks at the time came with what was called the G56 Six-speed manual transmission.
Okay. It's a long name, but okay.
Well, it's G56. Yes. And it's it was a Daimler Chrysler. It was a German-built transmission built out of Brazil. Okay, out of a plant in Brazil.
So are them tasty nuts come in the package with it when you get it?
Yeah, for sure. There's a couple of them jammed in it, yeah.
Nice.
So I was like, okay, here's this, I don't want to say broke, I was doing okay, but here's this guy on a budget, and I'm like, I get this harebrained idea.
Wait, harebrained? How the hell did you get that?
Did I have hair back then? I don't think I did.
Actually, I appreciate it for a while. No, you may not have. How'd you get that kind of?
I got this idea that I'm going to swap this 6-speed trans, brand new 6-speed trans, into my 1997 12-valve truck, which
I like it.
Sounds easy peasy.
No.
In reality, it kind of was, but there was a lot of things I had to figure out to do it.
I remember some of that. I remember when you did it, and I remember we talked a lot about that at the time.
Yeah.
That was still during the heyday of Project XJ, too. So that was,
yeah, exactly.
I was dealing with my own stuff and trying to learn about what you're doing, and I couldn't compute a lot of it.
This would have been...
I understood nothing back then.
This would have been, I think, mid-2011 when I did this, if I remember.
Sounds about right.
And I had done a bunch of research, and I was like, there has to be somebody that's done this, because the G56 Six Speed had been out since 2008.
Okay.
So at that time, it was only a 3-year-old trans at best. I'm sorry, I think it had been out since 2006. Yeah, 2006, but I could be wrong on this. It's been so long now.
Yeah.
But it had been out for a couple of years. Mm-hmm. Did a ton of research. I'm looking on forums. I'm looking... Facebook people didn't do a lot of stuff with cars at the time, so I'm looking at forums, I'm looking websites. I found reference to another long-haul hotshot trucker, which is what I did. I hauled a 42-foot enclosed trailer, antique cars and motorcycles all over the country with the business, hotshot trucking, with my 97 Dodge. Mm-hmm. I found another guy that had, actually it was a 97 if I remember correctly, and he had done kind of a really short blip of a write-up swapping out to that transmission, to the G56, without really any tech information. It was like, I pulled out the MV4500, I did this.
Yeah.
There were a couple things that he did in his swap that were kind of hacky.
Oh.
And
I've seen that in a lot of the stuff I've done, too. It's like...
Yeah, I know, you do a lot of hacky stuff.
No, I'm finding write-ups, people that do that, and it's like... It would take you 2 extra hours to do this the right way, and then why are you...
Yeah, so anyways. Like, if I remember correctly, this guy had done this hodgepodge clutch hydraulic setup. Mm-hmm. He had cut the heck out of the floor of his truck to make the... And I'm looking at this, and I'm like, man, I think it's easier than that, but you got to use the right combination of parts.
Yeah.
And I even tried contacting the guy. I sent him a PM through whatever forum or something I found him on. Never heard anything back.
Yeah.
So I said, you know what? I'm going to buy one of these transmissions, and come hell or high water, I'm going to figure out how to put it in my truck, even though they're not really necessarily meant to go together.
I love that part of the builds like that, where you figure out what bolts on to make it work like it should be there.
Well, that
was my favorite part of projects.
That was the beauty of this. I didn't know how much custom stuff I was going to have to get into. Mm-hmm. But I knew I wanted that transmission.
Yeah.
I knew I had a pretty good chance of being able to bolt together 90% of it. Mm-hmm. And it's one of the best rated manual transmissions to ever go behind a Cummins.
Yeah.
But probably the best transmission in the Dodge Cummins they ever used. Mm-hmm. And even better than the automatics, because the Cummins like to spit those suckers out.
Yeah.
And so our friend Bob's, I just talked to him the other day, and he's number 7 in his Dodge.
Good Lord.
Yeah, and his automatics. So, and he's on that truck.
There's your problem, Bob. Fix it right. Put a stick in. Jeez.
I've told him that.
Well, now it's official.
Yeah.
It's on the
air. And you could do that with what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So
there you go, Bob. Fix it right.
And Bob listens too. So yeah, Bob. G56 time, buddy. Yes. Here's how you're going to do it, If
I remember right, I know a guy who's got one at a discount.
Yeah, we do. We do. So this is what I decided to do. And obviously there's some trials and tribulations. So why don't we start with that right after the break?
I was just going to say that.
Okay. Right.
I like it. See you in a minute.
Hey, it sounds like it's time to swap out that old engine for something better, John.
Yeah, man, but I have so much into my trans and transfer case setup already. I don't want to change those too.
Sounds like you need to call Quick Draw Brand Adapters. They specialize in conversion bell housings for nearly all diesel and gasoline engines, including the new 2.8R Cummins.
I like weird engines. I want something different.
Then you definitely need to visit QuickDrawBrand.com today. They have those hard-to-find parts. They also have used diesel engines available. You can call them at 513-446-9654.
Cool, I'll do that. See what they have. Thanks.
All right, we're back, and we're talking some tech, kind of a tech-heavy episode, but we're telling some stories here at the same time. Obviously, I'm Keith of, formerly Route 55 Transport, formerly Thin Line Off-Road. Still Keith of Thin Line Off-Road, but...
I have a name tag. See?
And that's Johnny Orange of Orange.
Yes. I'm just Johnny Orange of Orange.
There you go. So
I really should have picked something better than citrus.
So I started researching the
avocado.
Oh my God.
John Avocado.
That avocado green used to be a very common color in the Jeeps back in the 70s.
I believe I've seen this, yeah.
And the Wagoneers.
Yeah. Then maybe I would come up with that phrase where they get them from Mexico. That stupid little jingle.
You
Avocados.
completely lost me.
Avocados from Mexico?
Yeah.
You've not heard that jingle?
Are you talking Juan Valdez from Colombia?
No.
Okay.
It's a commercial for avocados. Like the amazing power. And let's just
You realize I haven't had like cable television in probably 8 years?
I've never had it.
Or satellite.
It's on the radio. It's on TV.
The radio hasn't worked in Project Excursion in years.
It works on and off intermittently.
I mean, I don't hear commercials or see them very much anymore. Anyway, all right.
Yeah.
Besides, you should be driving a Kia from someplace Kia. But
no, just no. Don't start that again. I finally got that out of my head.
Non-Michigan listeners are I don't know what you're talking about. In the state of Michigan, we have been listening for probably at this point 6 or 7 years to this annoying ad.
It feels longer.
Yeah, I know. You should be driving a Kia from someplace Kia.
For the record, I ever meet that guy, I'm going to hit him right in the face, man.
Yeah, I know.
It's
on every radio station, always.
Every radio station, every TV ad, and it's usually
every commercial break,
back to back.
I've heard two of them back to back before.
It's so irritating.
Okay.
I would rather hear the General commercials from General RV.
Okay, yeah, those are somewhat worse, but are somewhat better, but not
much.
Yeah,
only because they don't usually go back to back.
Okay, so anyway,
so let's save some time and get back on track.
Yeah, back on track. So, like you do when you get into a project, I started researching the heck out of the G56, the transmission itself, and I'm glad that I did because I found out and I did look at my notes again because I like I said, it's been a while. I did a write-up. It's been, now we're looking at 9 years since I did this.
Yeah.
So back to the ghost thing, people are still calling me about this thing from the internet 9 years ago. But the G56 came out in 2005 as an optional transmission in the Dodge trucks. You could still get the NV5600 for a couple of years, so it was kind of like an either or. And I think it was like if you got the heavier duty, you got the G56, and eventually they just said we're putting the G56 in them all because we don't have as many problems as we do with the NV5600.
Yeah,
but. So I'm just going to read this off real quick, just the percentages on here. But I discovered something that oh man, and it just disappeared on me, didn't it? And that'll happen. Oh, here we go. Okay, from 2000 to 2005 to 2008 is technically when they made the G56.
Okay.
2009 to in this article it says current, and I wrote this article, but now we know it's 2019.
Yeah.
So 10 years. Technically, it was called the G56A, small letter A.
Okay.
The difference is that the early version, the first 3 years, used a 0.79 overdrive ratio, and that the current model used a 0.74 overdrive ratio, so slightly better overdrive ratio.
Nice.
Now, there was a bunch of, at the time, rumors, and they're still unsubstantiated to me because I have not dug into them enough, and I'm sure that maybe, in fact, I'm going to say this right now, if there's a trans expert out there listening to this and you can comment on 4x4 Talk or something, go on 4x4 Talk on Facebook. That's our Facebook group. Go on there and say, hey, I was listening to you guys, and here's the God's honest truth on this thing.
Yeah.
But there's a number of sources online that say the G56A has a stronger main shaft and that some of the internal parts were better as well, and that they were actually cryogenically treated parts.
Oh.
Where they do that, where they freeze the metal to get the atom straight. So I have heard other sources say that was just a rumor. So I don't know. Is it truth? Is it rumor? I guess without like finding some German dude that works for Daimler to confirm, we're not going to know.
I mean, we could get the parts and just get them tested.
Well, there's that, but
then we got to budget that. Somehow.
My biggest reason for wanting the 09 and newer was because I wanted the slightly better overdrive ratio for better fuel mileage, and supposedly the strength. So I went and I said, all right, well, this is 2011. I just need a 2-year-old transmission at best. Where do I get one from? No, I can't get one from AutoZone. I can't get one from the auto parts store. It's going to have to come from a wrecking yard.
Yeah.
Not a common transmission to find.
No, I remember, again, I remember where it came from. I think some of it anyways.
Well,
so, yeah.
The challenge, the first thing, I had a 2-wheel drive truck. Mm-hmm. I knew that they had a 2-wheel drive and a 4-wheel drive version of this transmission. Mm-hmm. Granted, I had never seen one in person until I physically had one sitting on my shop floor. Mm-hmm. So I didn't know that they were the same transmission. The 2-wheel drive and the 4-wheel drive. The 2-wheel drive version actually has the 6-bolt round flange on the back of it.
Yeah.
The only thing they do to make it 2-wheel drive is they bolt another flange to the back of it for a drive shaft.
That's awesome.
So that's your first thing. If you're looking to do a G56 swap on either a 2 or a 4-wheel drive, it doesn't matter. Just get the same trans. It's the same thing.
Here's what I'm wondering. How's the length? I don't know if you were going to get to that length of that trans compared to 45. All right. We'll wait till then.
We're going to get to that. So I'm looking all over for one. I finally found a 2-wheel drive. I could have gotten a 4x4 one, probably much more local, but I found a 2-wheel drive one through a internet parts search engine. Out in Washington State, I think it was, or maybe Oregon.
I think it was pretty sure it was Oregon. That's what Oregon. I remember it being.
And I ordered one, and it was almost $3,000.
Yeah.
So out of an 09 or a 10, so this is a brand new transmission. I think it had like 13,000 miles on it.
Sounds about right from what I remember.
They palleted this thing. They shipped it to me. Mm. So I get this trans, and it gets dropped off to me. We drop it on the shop floor. At this point, I'd already pulled the old blown-up NV4500 out of the Dodge, set the two next to each other, and I went, okay, what the heck did I just do? Because the G56 is physically twice the size of an NV4500. It is wider. It is significantly taller.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. It's only a quarter of an inch longer.
Really?
It's the same length as a 4-wheel drive NV4500. So
nice.
If Dodge guys out there, if you want to go NV4500 to a G56, you do not have to change your drive shafts.
Nice.
That's a nice bonus.
Yeah.
That's a real nice bonus.
Yeah.
And the output spline on the G56 is the coarse spline 29 spline, which is the same as the 4-wheel drive NV4500 Cummins trans.
Perfect.
Disclaimer there, the gas version NV4500 is typically 23 spline in the Dodges. So it's got to be the diesel version. So yeah, it does work for the Jeeps.
Yep.
But the Dodge diesel version manual transmission transfer case. So if you've got, like, for example, say a 96 or a 94 Dodge with an NV4500 and you're going to go with a G56, you don't have to do any no adapters. There are people out there, and I wanted to get them. There are people on eBay, maybe they're not there anymore, they used to sell an adapter to adapt your old transfer case, your like 1994, NP 241 is what those were, to a G56. And all they sold you was literally like a little tiny shim, like an 1/8 inch shim. And that's all it was. It did nothing. And this was it was like a $60 adapter they were selling. That's just preying on stupid people. That's all.
I don't remember the word for that, but that's
highway robbery.
Yeah, that works. Yeah.
So, anyways, length is pretty much the same.
Nice.
So I get this thing. I'm looking at it. I'm like, okay, cool. Bell housing bolt pattern is the same. Now,
nice.
If you know your Cummins, the bell housing bolt pattern, since the Cummins has been used in Dodge trucks, has not changed.
Nice.
All the way up to today.
Nice.
But, disclaimer there, the spacing has changed.
Like the distance as far as for the clutch to work?
Basically, yeah. Okay. So, the Cummins engines use
the bolts stay the same, but the bell housing changes.
Pretty much, yes.
Okay, that makes sense.
Well, no, the bell housing bolt pattern's the same. Mm-hmm. The bell housing's integral on the G56. It's detachable on the NV4500.
Okay.
But if you take a look at it, all the way back to 1989 in the Cummins trucks, uses the same bolt pattern, but the plate on the back of the Cummins in 1989 to 1993 is really thin.
Yeah.
It's only, I don't know, maybe a 1 3/4 inch.
Okay.
That engine plate only works with those first-gen Dodge trucks.
Gotcha.
If you want to swap a G56 or any modern Cummins transmission behind any Cummins engine or a 4BT, because a 4BT uses the same bolt pattern on the back of it, you got to use the 94 and newer plate.
Makes sense.
Okay, so that's what you got to do. So in my case, I already had a 97, so I had a 97 plate on the back of my engine. So physically, trans up in there, bolts to the engine. Great. Pilot bearing shaft, or pilot bearing size though, bigger on the G56.
Yeah.
Spline shaft, bigger. And I'm like,
ooh, custom clutch.
Yeah, so that's what I started looking.
56 clutch wouldn't work?
Well, the problem is G56 uses the dual mass clutches.
Oh.
I didn't want to go that route.
Yeah, those are funky.
And the dual mass won't work with the 12-valve flywheel.
Oh.
The flywheel and the clutch have to be matched on those.
So you couldn't swap the flywheel and the whole shebang out?
That's what I ended up doing.
Oh, okay then.
So what I ended up
Nice.
doing, and this took, there was a guy named, and I found out later, and please forgive me if you happen to listen and I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure somebody told me, the guy's name was Greg at South Bend Clutch. Mm-hmm. And I heard he's no longer there, retired. I hope he wasn't fired. I don't know.
Or worse.
Or worse. Yeah, that's true. But I remember his name was Greg.
So
I used to,
this dude from South Bend Clutch.
yeah, dude from South Bend Clutch out of Indiana. Called him up. Real technical, friendly guy. We got talking about this. Told him what I was going to do. And he's like, man, he goes, I've never done that before, but, what are your specs? So I started giving him all my measurements and everything. And he says to me, he says, I think what you need to do is go with a single mass clutch like the old MV5600s did, but your flywheel ring gear is going to be wrong, the spacing for your starter and all that.
Yeah.
And I said, well, how do I get around that? And he says to me, and this was his disclaimer, he goes, all the specs are indicating that a 05 and newer G56 single mass conversion flywheel will work on your old 12 valve.
Okay.
And as long as it does, we can then put an NV5600 clutch onto it.
Nice.
And I says, well, how much is this thing? And he says, I don't know, $400 or whatever it was or something like that. And so I'm going to take the gamble. So I bought the flywheel and I think I held off on the clutch kit until I had the flywheel.
Yeah.
If I remember right.
Makes sense.
Ships it to me. Boom, bolts to the back of the engine.
Nice.
Starter engages. Started up
Nice.
the engine. Works good. I went from having this thin flywheel to having this really thick flywheel now.
Yeah. I remember that thing was beefy, man.
Still on the garage. It's the only part I have left of that truck.
Bummer.
Anyways.
Couldn't get rid of it.
Yeah. So it went from... I went from having this narrow little flywheel to this big thick one that instead of like, it was like 11.5 up to like a 13-inch clutch or whatever it was.
Nice.
And went with the MV5600 era clutch pressure plate and disc all bolted together. I was able to bolt the trans up to the thing.
Nice.
So I had a couple other quick challenges. And
were the hydraulics the same?
Yes.
Awesome.
But there's a but there.
Oh.
And this was something that to this day, I get people that call me and go, I can't get the MV4500 stuff to work. You use the MV4500 stuff in your write-up. It's like, yeah, but I mentioned in the write-up, you had to use the push rod out of the G56. It's a different length.
Yeah.
Because the bell housing was a different depth.
Oh, yeah. That makes sense.
So if you put and I think that if I remember right, the MV4500 was a shorter one. So if you put that in, it wouldn't disengage the clutch fully.
Oh.
And the difference was like, I don't know, maybe an inch. So it's
that's significant.
It's significant, yeah.
So
So
clutch, that's a lot.
and all you do is you just push the push rod into the MV4500 and it bolts to the bell housing.
I had a quick side note.
Yeah, go ahead.
That Cherokee, I put it out last summer. The slave cylinders on the side of the bell housing. Took it off. Somebody had used a 6-inch 3/8 drive extension as the push rod.
I remember you telling me. Maybe you showed me a picture. That was pretty cool. Yeah.
It works. I kept the extension in my toolbox.
I could have done something like that. Who knows? But that was how I got that thing bolted up to the engine.
Nice.
Now, I did have a couple other minor hurdles to go over, and it's not going to take long to talk about those, but I would like to mention those when we come back, and then we can wrap this up with some 4x4 talk or whatever.
That's good. I got a funny story about a vehicle retrieval we made a couple days ago.
Perfect.
So, see you in a minute.
Is your septic system ready for the spring rains and melting snow? Let the experts at ABC Home and Commercial Services inspect your tank and properly pump it. A little preventative maintenance goes a long way in avoiding a system failure. Call ABC Home and Commercial Services today at 810-794-5678 and they'll be on their way. A septic pump is as easy as ABC. ABC Home and Commercial Services, 810-794-5678. That's 810-794-5678.
Should we keep them waiting, John, or should we hear your story here?
I like your idea. Let's keep them waiting. This is a Cummins related story.
Okay, tell me all about it.
So, as you know, Mr. Henry needed his sandrail back from the museum.
Yep.
So, unfortunately, that exhibit is presently gone. It may come back. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
But
it was fun having it there. Kids love sitting in it.
Oh yeah, absolutely, playing with all the buttons and turning the steering wheel.
Andrew loved driving it out back.
Yeah, and Andrew, our producer, he took it for a couple test spins. I forgot I wasn't supposed to talk about that.
Yesterday?
Yeah.
Oh, you went down and helped him?
No, we're screwing with you.
Oh, all right.
Anyways.
All right.
So we prearranged a time. I went over to Ed's house, give him a hand loading the trailer up, to head out there. We get there and truck's running. He's hooking the trailer up, and I'm looking on it, and something smells just a little off.
Okay.
And
hit a skunk or something. Gotcha.
No, it smelled strangely fuel-like.
Ooh.
So we walk around the truck, come back, and I'm like, man, your exhaust is... And then as I'm saying this, it's connecting that the exhaust is about 2.5 feet back of where the leak is. Fuel filter. Right where the water level sensor goes into it, looks like it was just drip, 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 drip,
Big
right on the exhaust
filter.
smoking. Original.
Oh.
Yeah.
So we've actually talked in a previous episode about the box store filters up front that fail, and that's why I buy them from Brackets down in Elginak.
I'm fairly confident that it's an original filter.
Okay.
I could be wrong.
All right.
I didn't look that closely. I crawled
His
under
truck's
and
not
looked.
that old.
16 or 17, I think.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so he bought it brand new.
Yep.
So we crawled under there and we're looking at it, and it's like, well, looks like it's coming from where the sensor goes in. Mm-hmm. So great, I got a brand new one. So he gets it out and we look at it. It comes with a brand new O-ring that goes right there for the sensor. And it says, great, do you have the tools to change it? He goes, no.
You need tools to change a fuel filter on it?
To get it to break loose at first, yeah. And he didn't have a wrench big enough to get on it's like a hex for the sensor.
Okay.
Didn't have a wrench big enough.
Gotcha.
So it's like, well, we can run to your dad's and get the tools. I might at my house. What do you want to do? She says, let's take the girlfriend's Jeep. She's got a 2019 JL Wrangler.
Oh, they finally got it?
With a towing package. Yeah,
and they towed the sandrail back with it?
We hooked the trailer up to the Jeep and then drove out there with it and towed it back.
Okay.
So I got a picture of it here.
Did you blow up the JL?
No. That's it. It's loaded.
She's got a little squat, but not too bad.
A little bit, yeah.
I mean, I towed with... No, I never did tow with my JK, now that I think about it. No, I didn't. I never had a hitch on that. No, I did. I did, because I had the...
Did something.
Yeah, no, I drove to Florida with the tailgater thing on the back of it. No, I towed with mine a couple of times, yeah.
So, yeah, she's squatting a little bit, but it was really funny. We come up to the intersection, and his dad likes to rip on him. Mm-hmm. It's pretty funny.
Don't those only have like a 4,500-pound tow rating?
Yeah, we were at or slightly above it.
Yeah, that sandrail probably weighs at least that.
Oh, that sandrail hardly weighs anything. The trailer, though, that's
a
heavy duty. Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of steel in that sandrail.
It's actually more aluminum than you would think. The frame is steel.
Oh, okay.
All the floors and paneling are all aluminum.
Oh, okay.
Excuse me. So we're at the intersection ready to turn. And mind you, he's in the girlfriend's, that light teal turquoise color. I love the color. Don't get me wrong. But
that's a great
color. Kind of a girly color.
No, it's not.
His dad calls it that. We're ripping on Ed here, so.
Okay, it's a girly color, Ed.
You rip on me for all my stuff leaking all over your driveway. It's payback time. So we're at the light in Richmond there to turn.
Yeah.
I look over and like, hey, Ed, isn't that your dad's truck over there? And his dad drove by with the biggest smile on his face, like, what'd you do, boy?
Well,
it was
that's
great.
cool, Jeep, though,
yeah,
man.
It towed great. It worked great.
Is it a Rubicon, too?
No,
okay.
It's just, it's got some upgrades. It's got a towing package, a couple other upgrades,
Okay.
but no, other than that, as far as I know, it's like bone stock.
Okay.
And yeah, I hooked the trailer up, and temps got a little warm as you'd expect.
Sure.
But I mean, other than that, it towed great, it hauled great. Wouldn't recommend it for long term, but for short distance like that, it was awesome. So nothing like a start to your day of a leaky diesel truck to start it.
Yeah.
And now a huge puddle on the driveway floor. On the plus side, though, he won't have to worry about rust on most of the back half of the truck now.
Well, that's Project Excursion. At least so much
yeah.
oil, the whole underside of it is just coated.
Yeah, exactly. People pay for that service.
Yeah, that's true. That's true, man. Let's just keep dumping oil, it'll be cheaper in it. But
I test drove mine again the other day, and not so good.
You'll get there, huh?
Well, at this point, I think I'm going to drop the tank, drain all the fuel out, rinse it, replace primary filter again, and just put fresh diesel in it and pray to everybody. I'm tired of screwing with it. I talked to another friend, suggested I might have to do another filter.
Yeah.
Because before I could go to 60 miles an hour, anything over, it would do it. This time it did it at about 50.
Gotcha.
But from where it stalled out to home, I drove 40 the whole time. No problem. Runs great. Idles beautifully.
You'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Someday.
That or
Maybe.
there might be an insurance job that happens.
There you go.
I mean, no. I would never do something like that to my beloved Pegasus.
Yeah, no. All right, so
Anyways.
so we kept people waiting long enough on this G56 thing. I said that it bolted into the truck, and it did. However, there's a couple of caveats to that.
Okay.
First of
I like
all,
caviar. That's good stuff.
Oh yeah, it is very good, isn't it?
I've never actually had it.
I had gone back to, like I said, to that previous guy that had done the swap, and he had cut his floor pan and raised it like 2 inches.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at it, and I'm measuring, and I'm measuring, and I'm measuring. Now, the shifter hole came out in the exact same spot as the MV4500.
Okay.
And I'm like, there's no way that trans is that tall.
Yeah.
Because I had the MV4500, I want to say maybe had 2.5 inches or something. This was a significantly taller trans, but I'm like, seems like she had at least a 1/2 inch of clearance there. I figured out that if I tilted the Cummins engine back far enough, and I actually had to jack up on the front of the harmonic balancer, I could bolt the trans, and I could get it back up into spot with it almost rubbing on the bottom of the floor, but it fit without any floor modifications.
Nice.
With that being said, I learned the hard way that when I jacked up the front of it, I jacked it up so hard that I'd popped one of the the intercooler boots off.
Fun.
And I only popped it almost off.
Oh.
So it let go when I was in Nevada. Okay. And then I put it back on.
Nice.
But I didn't realize I had loosened up. I think it was the bottom one.
Yeah.
When I took it back, the trans back out much later, I learned that you have to pop off the intercooler, bottom intercooler tube.
Gotcha.
You can tilt the motor far enough. Nothing else has to be removed.
That's awesome.
So got it in there, got up. Now, the trans cross member, the trans mount does not sit in the exact same spot. Without like quoting exact measurements, I think what I had to do, I had to cut out the center of the trans cross member, lower it a little bit, weld in a piece. So I modified it myself with a welder. So this took a little bit of fabrication knowledge. I had to drop the center of the cross member maybe 1 inch.
Okay.
And I had to bring the holes, I think, backwards maybe 2 inches.
That's not too bad.
No, I just welded a little plate in there. Worked out great. Boom, now it bolts in. Use the stock mount, the stock trans mount.
That's awesome. That's what I like about it.
Stock trans mount bolted to the G56.
That was one of the issues I ran into on Project XJ, was figuring the trans mount to make it work right. So the kit that I put in that had that lower subframe, it's a Skyjacker, the original Rock Ready kit.
Yeah.
for an automatic.
Oh, okay.
So I had to figure out how to make it work for a manual. And it's basically mark and re-drill the holes.
Yeah, that's. This wasn't quite a re-drill. You'd have to notch out for a little bit of room with the transcross.
I was just pissed because I had everything all nicely painted with that nice green epoxy paint, and it looked great. And then I screwed it up. It looks like crap now.
As I previously said, if I had a 4-wheel drive, it would have bolted in. That would have been the end of it.
Yeah.
Okay. But I had 2 more issues because it was a 2-wheel drive. One, it did not have a slip yoke transmission like the original did. So I had to have my drive shaft redone with a flange on the front of it.
Gotcha.
So if you're going to do a 2-wheel drive swap G56, I'm going to tell you right now, I had to buy that flange brand new, and at the time it was like $170. So if you happen to have that availability at the junkyard, either cut it off, torch it off, try to get the front drive shaft flange, because the whole drive shaft's probably not going to work. I never tried getting one out of like a...
You mean the front flange of the rear drive shaft?
Front flange of the rear drive shaft, yeah. For a 2-wheel drive only.
Yes.
Because it's got a flange. Try to get the flange and bolts. You need those, because I had to buy those.
Yeah.
The second thing that you need to try to get, if you're 2-wheel drive, is, well, actually, no, it'd be your 4-wheel drives as well. Either transmission, if you want your reverse light to work, the reverse light sensor on those used a special German little sensor.
Yeah.
And it had a
proprietary plug.
It had a proprietary plug.
Oh.
Little tiny pins on it.
Yeah.
I called all these Dodge dealers, and I'm like, I just need a harness. Like, I just need the plug. I need, you know, the fix. And every single one of them told me it's an entire underbody harness, and it wasn't super expensive. I want to say it was in the like $500 range, but I wasn't going to buy that just for a plug.
That's stupid expensive.
Yeah. For a whole harness.
That. Well, for a whole that's
what I'm saying. For a whole harness, it wasn't expensive. Just to buy the plug, no.
Yeah.
But so I called a bunch of yards. A bunch of yards were like, no, we're not cutting that off a good harness. The few that had it, including the place I got it from.
Yeah.
So I ended up taking a couple of micro female connectors, little tiny ones, because it's pins in the inside.
Yeah.
Slid them right down in there. I crimped them to some wires, slid them right down in there onto those pins.
That epoxied the crap out of it.
Yeah, and then I filled it with silicone.
That works too.
Just clear silicone.
Yeah.
And it worked till the day I got rid of the truck.
Nice.
My last thing, which on a 4-wheel drive would not be an issue, on a 2-wheel drive it was, because on a 2-wheel drive NV4500, the tail housing has your speedometer sensor going up to 97.
Oh, no.
Now, the 4-wheel drives, it's on the back of the transfer case.
Gotcha.
The 98, they started taking the signal from an ABS sensor.
Nice.
I had to figure out how to do the same way.
Yeah.
So using the 97, because it was a switchover year for the second-gen Dodges, I picked up the ABS tone off the rear axle.
Nice.
And I went to Kodet Digital. That's a company, and for about $90,
I've heard of them.
Yeah, I got a converter box. And I think they just call it their tone ring converter.
Okay.
And it literally, you can play with the switches on it for the different pulses.
Yeah.
And you can look at the pulses with a multimeter, and I can't, in my mind, if I went back to the old build thread, maybe I could say what it was, but it was like I had to switch so many up, so many down.
Yeah.
But you could figure it out yourself if you bought one. And I ended up taking that tone from the rear ABS sensor, cutting into, and I do remember this, there's a blue wire in the harness right behind the cluster, and that's your speedometer wire. Cut that off, hooked it to the Dakota Digital sensor, and my speedometer was within, according to my GPS, it was within like 1.5 miles an hour accurate.
Nice.
So, and
nice.
The cool thing with the Dakota Digital one is you could actually sit there and you could push a button to adjust the speedometer up and down. So I went down the road with my GPS.
Yeah.
And then when I was like right at 65, I sat there hitting a button until my speedometer went 65.
Nice.
So it worked out really well.
That's awesome.
So that was the last thing I had to do to it. And I ended up taking this truck, my test drive. I still remember this. I took the family. We went out to dinner that night, and I was like, well, I just finished the swap. I didn't even have the bottom of the dash on because I had to be in there for the Dakota Digital
Your family
stuff.
trusted you to drive them and something you just built for the first time?
You know, sketchy, huh? So I get in this thing, and The shifter worked fine, but the shifter boot was a little tall, a little stretched, but it still worked. Yeah. I got it in there. It looked a little funky. I could have built something different, but it worked.
I'm going to have to deal with that on Project XJ because the part of the tower actually comes through the floor on it.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So I go to shift this thing. Well, the MV4500 reverse is down and to the right. G56 reverse is over and up to.
Boy.
First gear and reverse, first gear creeper and reverse are right next to each other on that. So it's complete opposite. And I didn't do anything. I didn't run into anything. But it took, I got to say, probably about 2 weeks to get used to that shift pattern being kind of backwards.
That's why I don't know if I could. My brother's JK's a 6 speed. And I've seen the shift patterns, and I question it because it's like, I'm so used to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 reverse. And it's just goofy to me.
Well, with 373 rear gears and a 12 valve Cummins that was tweaked a little, fuel plate had been tweaked and it had a boost elbow on it. So I never had it on a dyno, but I had it to a diesel shop, and that guy was estimating I was around 400 horsepower with it.
Nice.
Now there's guys putting 1,000 horsepower on it, but I was probably around 400 horse. I could put that down into second gear, which was really your first gear. First gear was creeper,
Yep.
And I took off from that, even towing a 42-foot trailer behind me. I rarely ever used first gear.
Nice.
So it was second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth.
Yeah.
With the slightly better, because I went from a 0.85 overdrive to a 0.74 overdrive.
Nice.
If I was completely unloaded, my best fuel, and guys will call me a liar. I don't care. Call me a liar. I hand calculated every tank when I was trucking. My best tank ever, I did 31 miles a gallon. But out of a 3/4 ton Dodge truck.
Nice.
But disclaimer, that was the only weird one I ever had happen. For the most part, unloaded, as long as I kept it under 2,000 RPM, I got about 27, 28 with that truck.
Nice.
Very, very respectable.
Yeah.
Out of a full-size truck.
So here's my final question on the whole thing. Was it worth it? Factoring in the fact that to replace it with an MV4500 versus that cost versus your total cost, was the difference worth it? If that makes sense.
New clutch and new NV4500 or rebuilt one, I would have been about $2,000. Okay. Conservatively, maybe up and down a little bit depending on which part of the country you're in. I had about $4,250 into the whole swap doing the G56. I turned around and put almost 60,000 miles on that with my truck within a year. Maybe a little more than that. Drove it to Alaska with that transmission. Did all sorts of stuff with it. Never let me down whatsoever.
Yeah.
When I closed down that business when I got divorced, I sold that truck to my dad, who turned around and ran it for his business from 2013 until last year. And when I sold him that truck, it had, I think about 595,000 miles on it.
Jeez.
And the odometer stopped working just shy of 600.
Yeah.
And then he drove it for all those. In his company, they averaged 30,000, 40,000 a year. That thing probably had 700,000 miles on it when it died, and that trans was still. And once it died, the frame actually rotted out on the truck.
Oh.
Trans and engine were fine still. All those years later. So, yes, it was worth it.
That's awesome.
I would say so. We ran a little long this time. I think we kind of hit most of the things. In the after show, I want to tell you a little bit about plans for our future studio here.
Okay.
And so if people are interested in hearing that, you need to go to John. Actually, you've got your list.
Yeah, I got my paper.
You got your list. You tell them where they're going to hear about the plans for our future studio here.
Well, you just said on the after show.
Well, yeah, but how can they find the after show?
By listening to it.
John, tell them where.
So for bonus content like our after show, the end of the trail show. Wow, I blanked out for a moment there. Check us out, patreon.com/Wheelin Radio. Get access to that as low as $2 a month. If you do have any questions, comments about any of our episodes, feel free to get a hold of us or join and get a hold of us on the 4x4 Talk page on Facebook. And leave us a comment. You can search 4x4 Talk on Facebook. A couple of quick questions get you on there, or facebook.com/groups/4x4 Talk. If you are watching us on YouTube, first off, I'm going to apologize. But make sure to hit the thumbs up at the bottom of the player and hit subscribe so you see more content from us in the future. Huge thanks to Andrew, the producer. Without him, this would not be possible. And as always, thanks for listening, and have a good one, everybody.